Hello. Hello.
Three, two.
That was why I called you. Did you change You know? Like, rather like this. Well, we should have it. So Is that like for the mic?
Oh, it's taped down.
I think it's okay because like it's just your. Can I move the podium back?
What's that?
Can I move the podium back then?
Sure.
Or I can just like
You could just
I
pull the
can rip
tape
the
off,
gaffer
too.
tape up.
Yeah. I don't know if that's too much.
Is someone going to be talking at this?
Yeah, it's just, you want to use that or no? That's the question.
Not anymore. Oh shit.
I think if no one's going to use it, we can...
She can just be like
Hello. Hi, folks. Thank you to those who showed up super early. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to get started in like 15 to 20 minutes. I'm sorry about the wait. We're just wrapping up and waiting for a couple more folks to show up, but stay seated. We're going to get started really soon here. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are we all doing tonight? Thank you for coming out on this summer evening. We're so happy to be here with all of you and so grateful to have an incredible guest with us, the amazing Representative Pramila Jayapal. I'm going to just do brief remarks at the beginning and talk a little bit about how this tonight is going to go with the town hall, and then we really want to mostly hear from all of you and get your questions answered and hear from you. So let me just start by saying that we are so delighted to be back here in Spokane to host another People's Town Hall with you, Representative Pramila Jayapal. We had such a great experience last time, and we're just so grateful that we could do it again. And we think it's really important that we continue to message in these districts that need strong representation. I am Chair Shasti Conrad of the Washington State Democrats. Yes. Both Representative Jayapal and I are both the first South Asian women to be in our roles, and very proud Desi's to be doing this work together. And I'm really proud of all of the incredible work that the Washington State Democrats have been doing. We were the only state that went more blue in the entire country, and we are showing the rest of the country how it gets done. And, you know, tonight really is about demonstrating what a representative democracy really, truly requires, and that all of our elected officials need to hear from all of you, from the people. And around the country, Democrats in all 57 states and territories are meeting with constituents, especially in red districts. Congressman Michael Baumgartner held a couple of town halls, and then he voted for Trump's "we're all gonna die" bill, and then disappeared. And so we really think that it's important that we show him what real leadership looks like, and that we're paying attention, and that we're not going to let Republicans in Congress continue to just, you know, wreck our government and do this for the tax cuts for their wealthy friends. Before we get started tonight, I do want to just take a moment to recognize the tremendous bravery and service of our firefighters. I know, yes, what happened I guess it was just yesterday, what happened just yesterday right across the border in Idaho is truly horrifying, and we mourn those who were assassinated, and our hearts truly break for their families, so we do want to just acknowledge their service. So if we can just take a moment of silence for those folks. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. So our program tonight, I do want to thank our staff from the Washington State Democrats who did amazing work to bring all of this together, and that's Isabella Maffei, Maria Leininger, Marie Ann Sabangan, and Stephen Reed, and the whole team of the Washington State Democrats, and we were able to pull this together in less than a month. So, you know, Michael Baumgartner, it can happen. You can do it. And this is an opportunity to ask your questions directly to our amazing Congresswoman Jayapal, and we really want this to be as conversational as possible and a space for you all to get those questions answered and to see what leadership truly looks like. If you have a question tonight, when you checked in, you should have gotten a ticket to identify you as being able to ask the questions. Isabella is going to read the numbers that were chosen aloud. When you hear your number, please come up to the front, and then we'll ask that when you do ask your question, if you can keep it to a minute or shorter so we can get in as many questions as possible tonight. So I will hand it over to Isabella to call the numbers.
Hi folks, thank you for your patience here. So I'm pulling 10 to start with. If we get through all of them, I can pull some more, but these are the numbers. So look at the half ticket that you got. The numbers are 699631. That's the first one. 152577. 699642. 152588. 152576. 699639. 152581. 152585. 152573. And 699635. So if any of your numbers got called, just come meet me down here. Thank you.
Great. Well, and while folks are getting situated with your questions, I have the extreme honor of introducing our special guest this evening. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal was elected to Washington's 7th District in 2016, the one real bright spot that we had in that election back then. Feels sort of like those times again, yes. Before running for Congress, Pramila served as a state senator and founded the nonprofit One America to organize immigrant and refugee communities to secure the resources they needed to thrive. She has co-chaired the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives and led the Democratic response to the Trump administration's unconstitutional immigration raids that deny fundamental rights to due process and the rule of law. So please join me in welcoming the incredible Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to Shasti Conrad, our amazing chair of the Washington State Democratic Party, also a vice chair of the Democratic Party nationally. Congratulations, Shasti. You know, I am so happy to be here and to be with you because I've done 120 town halls since I came into office. Because I actually believe that constituents should be able to talk to me and I should be able to talk to them and we should have the opportunity to have a conversation. And so it feels important that I am here with the State Democratic Party to make sure that people here can ask questions of their member of Congress. And, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be going back tomorrow to DC or not. At this point, I'm scheduled to go back to vote on the big bad betrayal bill that will cut 16 to 17 million Americans off of their health care and be the biggest transfer of wealth from working people and poor people to the richest millionaires and billionaires. It's really unprecedented. Even the Trump tax scam of 2017 was different in that there was actually a very small, I mean, it was hugely disproportionate, but there was a small tax cut for the middle class in that. If you sort of looked and parsed it carefully, if you looked at how much went to the middle class versus the billionaires, it was incredibly disproportionate. But there was something. In this bill, the bottom 20% is actually going to pay more in taxes. The next 20% is going to get about a $1,600 tax break. But once you add in the fact that your electricity costs are going to go up in every state in the country, once you add in that your healthcare costs are going to go up, that if you happen to be on SNAP, nutrition assistance programs, that's going to increase. All of your costs are increasing dramatically. That ends up being a tax increase as well. And so literally, unless you're in the top very small percentage of the country in terms of wealth, you are going to see your expenses increase. And don't forget that any so-called tax breaks that are in there for working people and poor people are actually just temporary. They expire. Whereas every single tax break for the wealthiest is permanent. So it's really important to look at all of the things that are in this bill and understand the consequences, because at the end of the day, this big bad betrayal bill is going to bankrupt families. It's going to bankrupt our healthcare system. Our rural hospitals around our healthcare clinics are all going to have significant challenges, and it's going to bankrupt our economy. It's adding $5 trillion to the deficit, and this is under the watch of the supposedly fiscally conservative Republican Party. And I'll tell you, there are some members on the other side, people like Chip Roy and others, Thomas Massie. You know, Thomas is a Republican from Kentucky. He has a counter on the debt, and to Thomas's credit, he has voted no on this. Tom Tillis got up, Rand Paul got up, and they told the truth, actually, about what this bill. Tom Tillis, in terms of how it's going to destroy health care in this country, and what is he supposed to say to the people in North Carolina who are going to get kicked off of their Medicaid? That is what's going to happen in every state. And right here in Spokane, that's going to happen as well, across Washington state. Because if you look at how many people are dependent on Medicaid, this district and the district that Dan Newhouse represents, these are these are some of the largest percentages of people who are dependent on Medicaid, seniors who are going to get kicked out of their nursing homes that are going to get closed. And so even if you look at Mike Johnson's home state of Louisiana, 60% of births in Louisiana are paid for by Medicaid. That's in Mike Johnson's home state. So this is really a travesty, and we're waiting to see what the Senate does. Lisa Murkowski could stop this bill right now if she voted no. We've already got 3 people in the Senate, 3 Republicans who are going to vote no. So we need 1 more. And it is possible. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the House. There are a lot of people, the Republican Party is split. There are some Republicans in tough districts who recognize that doing this means they're going to screw their constituents. And so they want to make the Medicaid cuts less, and then there's others who want to make it much worse. And we'll see. As you know, it only passed in the House by 1 vote. And so I think it's just really important for us to recognize that this is not something that's necessarily going to happen. We still have the power potentially to stop it. And so it is just so important that you're here and that we have the opportunity to talk about all of the things that are happening. I was in Spokane today, came in earlier and had a couple of roundtables with immigrant rights groups, impacted communities, business owners. The head of the Growers League came down for the meeting, because you don't have to be partisan on this. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, but what is happening to our immigrant communities and our immigrant workers and neighbors and friends is devastating people across every part of this country, destroying businesses, farms, kidnapped. And to see a country that, I came here when I was 16 years old by myself with $5,000 in my bank account. My mom called me from India the other day and said, how can it be that the United States of America has masked men on the streets, kidnapping and disappearing people? She said, that's not the country we sacrificed everything to send you to. And I think it's really painful for us to watch what is going on, because the thing I would remind everybody about, and I know you're here in this room because you know this, that if you can erode due process rights for one group of people, you can do it for anyone. And right now we're seeing US citizens, including US citizen children with cancer, getting deported. We're seeing people with legal status getting that status taken away, and it's an attack on every part of the immigration system, including the legal immigration system, where people are coming in to court hearings, scheduled court hearings, and they're being arrested and detained. And all of this is really, they're not disparate events. I guess that's the point I want to get across. They're really connected. It's all about centralizing power. It's all about ensuring that a very few people control everything, from what you earn, where you live, what choices you make about your own body, what medical treatment your kids can get, and of course, how much you earn and whether you have the ability to live and thrive. And we have a different vision in the Democratic Party. We believe that people should have housing, universal childcare, education, the things that allow us to thrive and not just survive, and retire with dignity, have health care that we can afford. These are not radical concepts. It's actually what most countries in the world have. And that's what I'm going to continue to fight for. And I'm just really grateful that you all are here tonight, that we already have our questions, very high tech with the Democratic Party. The state Democrats, they have a lottery system. I didn't know that. You got to pull for a ticket for your answers, for your questions. But I know we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight, and I'm looking forward to it, because our democracy is at stake. And at the end of the day, if you have somebody in office who does not respect the checks and balances of the system, because checks and balances were put in with a fundamental assumption that the people that you have in office on both sides of the aisle would respect the Constitution. And so that's the assumption that's built into those checks and balances. And I think that we as Americans have gotten a little complacent about thinking that those checks and balances are going to survive no matter what. And in fact, what's happening is you're seeing an administration that is willing to disregard the Constitution, disregard the courts, disregard Congress. And at the end of the day, if somebody does that, the only solution to democratic backsliding in that situation is the people. And so I hope you all will join our resistance lab trainings, which we started literally just about 3 months ago, and we've already trained 10,000 people in all 50 states across the country. And the next one is, I believe it's on July 13th. It's virtual, but we also encourage people to do house parties and call in from the house party. So I believe there's one in Spokane, a house party that we can connect you into if you want to be in a room full of people. But we really look at what is effective nonviolent strategy to fight back against democratic backsliding. How do you do that? How do you know what's effective? And what does it look like for a country to actually take this on? So please sign up. It's resistancelab.us to sign up. And we hope to see you on the 13th. And let's get to your questions for both Shasti and I.
Great. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm actually helping to organize that watch party in Spokane with a lot of other people. So it's going to be at the Rockwood South Hill Community Center. So talk to me, talk to someone, and we can get you a link to RSVP to that. So my question...
Thank you so much.
Oh yes, we're excited about it. So my question is, I've been calling Baumgardner, Cantwell, and Murray, and I dutifully leave my voicemails, and once in a while I talk to someone. Are there more effective things that I can do to influence my electeds and or the process overall? Like, if I'm going to spend an hour a day, how would you have me spend that hour?
Yeah. Well, the calls, especially to our Republican colleagues, are really important. And the more of those you can get in, and the more, stories that you can use, not only with calls, but think about letters to the editor, think about op-eds, think about going on radio shows, think about podcasts. What things are you involved in where you can get the message out? Because I just saw some data today that a huge number of Americans, only 8% of Americans actually know about the Medicaid cuts in the big bad betrayal bill, right? A huge number of people do not know what's in this bill. So remember that your voice is critically important, both when you make those calls to your elected representative, but also when you are using it in the community. And it's why on immigration it's been so important and effective, and with these Medicaid cuts as well, to have the stories come out. You could have a storytelling session right outside your representative's office with people telling stories. Invite the press. I guarantee you they'll come. Because I really do think that finding the nursing homes that are going to shut down, finding the hospitals that are going to close, finding the seniors that are going to get kicked out, finding people who are willing to share how this impacts them is actually essential, because believe it or not everybody knows what's going on the way you do. So we need to get that message out there.
And if I may speak again, so that's what my green ribbon is about. And when people say, why are you wearing that green ribbon? I say, green's for money. Do you know about this budget bill? And 75% of the time they don't. At least 75%. And so then I give them 3 or 4 talking points, and I have quarter sheet handouts, and I say, have you called your electeds today? Will you call your electeds? And so, being me, I of course brought extra green ribbons and safety pins and handouts. I'm in a pink shirt.
That's so perfect. Thank you. And also, don't forget, you can make a list of the Republicans in other states, because this bill only passed by 1 vote in the House. So remember that you can think about, make a list of 10 people that you know that are in Republican districts or states, and call them and ask them to call in, right? Let's think about our networks as broadly as possible and try to activate them as much as possible.
Good evening. Chair Conrad and Representative Jayapal, thanks so much for coming to Spokane. My name is Carmela Conroy, and I am hoping to unseat Michael Baumgartner next week. I'm a third-generation Eastern Washingtonian. I'm a third-generation union member, and my grandparents were farm workers. So the first union activity that I participated in that I remember was the Delano Grape Strike all the way back in 1965. And I was raised to understand that every job is important and it's worth doing right. And essential workers who feed us and care for us and build our homes, like my grandfather and my father, those people are part of our communities. I went on to become a national security professional with the Department of State. And at the Naval War College, one of the things that they taught us is that the elements of national power are diplomacy, intelligence, military, and economic strength. Dying is how we remember that. And what I'm seeing and what I'm finding terrifying is that this regime is attacking and dismantling all of those elements of national power. And as they do that, they are using unclassified communication systems, things like Signal, which will disappear and make it impossible, if they're allowed to continue that, to know what happened and hold them accountable, which creates tremendous opportunities for corruption, as well as seeing the misdirection of funds that should be keeping us safe, instead being used to attack essential workers in our communities and tear their families apart and send them off to detention centers when they've committed no crimes whatsoever. So what are the House Democrats doing behind the scenes to prepare for an opportunity in 2026 after we take back the majority in the House and the Senate to hold accountable the people who are stealing taxpayer money and misdirecting it in ways that harm us?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I think that this is one of the really difficult things to watch right now, is the dismantling of every part of our democracy as it functions. And so even when we are back in power, building back this technical expertise in our intelligence forces, in our healthcare system, in our education system, in Social Security, and all of the government agencies is going to be a massive, massive task. And it's heartbreaking. I don't know, do we have any federal workers here, civil servants that have been a part of the layoffs and the cuts that we've had? Not here in this room. Okay, well, we usually in our town halls, we have a lot of those folks, and I want to say thank you to them because they've been doing amazing work, and it's been really tough. Not only are they losing their jobs, which of course brings them to tears, but what really brings them to tears is the fact that they have this expertise. And so I think for Democrats, when we take back the House, the Senate, and the White House, when we have a trifecta, we have to put in place, first of all, better checks and balances around authoritarians and dictators. I mean, we can't rely on the assumptions that you'll have people of both parties in Congress. You saw that Tom Tillis is now resigning. You saw that Don Bacon is going to step down. So these are even the people that were considered moderates on the other side are leaving because they're being threatened by the cult party and by all the money that's being put in against them. And so we have to have a better way to hold people accountable when they violate the Constitution. You might have seen that Trump today advertised on his social media that he's now selling Trump perfumes. I mean, I kid you not. And it's actually like painful for me to watch because it's like America is for sale to the highest bidder. And this is clearly unconstitutional. It's clearly a violation of the Emoluments Clause to accept a luxury jet from Qatar. or to have all the real estate holdings that are going into your family accounts while you get richer and Americans get poorer. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is we have to figure out how to actually build, I don't want to say build back better because, it's painful, but how to build systems that allow Americans to thrive. Why can't we have universal childcare, right? I mean, it should not cost what it costs to put kids in childcare because it's taking away the incentive for people to work if it costs $2,800 a month for one kid to be in childcare. Why can't we dramatically raise the cap, if not eliminate the cap on Social Security so that our seniors can actually get the benefits and the COLA that they need? Because even Warren Buffett said that his secretary is not, is paying way more in taxes than he is, right? So I think there's a number of things that we need to do in our policy platform, but everything should be focused on the ability to afford a decent life. Nobody's looking to, become billionaires. People just want to live a decent life, be able to afford their health care, be able to retire with dignity. So I think that policy platform is something we should be putting in place now. And it's not like there's any secret to this. We've been fighting for higher minimum wages. We've been fighting for the right to unionize because we know that unionized workers end up raising wages and benefits for all working people. We know what this is, but we need people to really fight for it. And we need to be just as ruthless in fighting for it as we see they are in destroying what we have right now.
My name is Ernie Robeson, and I live on the north side of Spokane County. Shasti, congratulations on your new role. And Representative Jayapal, I tell people that you are my representative because I don't have a representation. I started watching the Tom Hartman program about 20 years ago, and Bernie Sanders was on there every Friday, Brunch with Bernie, and I completely changed my politics from that, and you're on there now, so I want to thank you for doing that. And I want you to know how that affected me, and I'm sure you're affecting other people. You've talked already about everything that I could talk about, except one issue that is really important to me, and that affects all of us, all the Republicans and all the Democrats, and that's climate change. Yes. And it's just been shoved to the back burner, and I think we can't let that happen. We have wildfires, and we have heat domes, and we have smoke, and I'm really concerned about our salmon because we've just kicked that to the back burner. In 1964, I was 10 years old, and we lived in the town of Skamakawa on the coast. Yeah. And we went salmon fishing out across the Columbia River Bar. And the runs were completely decimated then, and the people were talking about how it used to be. And here it is, 50 years, 60 years later, and we're still kicking the can down the road. And President Biden did so many wonderful things right at the end, and one of that was the Columbia River Initiative, and he was making tremendous progress on that. And now just all of a sudden, Trump doesn't believe in windmills, and he doesn't like the look of solar panels, so all that's out the window. So my question is, how do we keep that at the forefront, along with 1,000 other things that need to be at the forefront?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I love going on Tom Hartman, by the way. I really enjoy it because it's such a engaged, interested audience from across the country, and so I love being on there. We have pushed this can down the road for a long, long time. And during the Biden administration, for the first time, not enough, but for the first time, and I was the chair of the Progressive Caucus that held the line over and over again because we refused to just get the infrastructure bill without Build Back Better, which ultimately became the Inflation Reduction Act, ultimately became the largest investment in taking on climate change in the history of our country. Really enormous investment. And it changed how Europe engaged. It changed how other countries around the world were engaging. And to say we can get to a fossil-free environment, we can get to a green infrastructure environment that creates good jobs, good union jobs, and that actually allows our kids and our grandkids to have a future. As you say, the problem is they're undoing everything. And you know that one of the big pieces of the big bad betrayal bill is to end all of the tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act. So this is literally taking away all the steam that we had because we knew the government had to invest if we want people to make this change. And so all of the steam that we had around environmental justice, around moving to green energy sources, around building more manufacturing, green energy manufacturing in this country, keeping jobs here, all of that is being taken out of this big bad betrayal bill. And instead, what are they trying to do? They're trying to drill on public lands, sell off enormous amounts of public lands. By the way, that provision, big win, it got taken out. So that is no longer on the table. So at least for now, we've protected our public lands. But you're absolutely right that the vision of the world in that they are putting forward is not a green energy economy. In fact, they're doing everything they can to make it a fossil fuel economy, and no emphasis on environmental justice at all, by the way, in the midst of all of this. So I think what we have to do is we have to be ready to not just go back to where we were, but when we take office again, when we have the trifecta again, to really invest quickly and heavily in that kind of domestic manufacturing. You know, I don't agree with Elon Musk on very much because the Department of Greed and Evil has done nothing to help Americans, in my view. That's what I call Doge. But he is on a tweeting rampage today about this point. Not because necessarily he's talking about climate change, but because he's talking about all of the tax credits and the subsidies for green energy, including electric vehicles, solar panels, all of that, that was in the Inflation Reduction Act. So I think it's very clear, and you may have seen that the Teamsters International Union president, who confounded many of us last time, but not our local Teamsters folks, they're great, but by not endorsing in that race, came out with a blistering statement about all the jobs that are going to be lost with what's happening. So I think we have an opportunity. What we saw with the IRA is that we can actually make that transition much more quickly. And there are things we have to fix, there are things we have to do more of, but it is possible. And I just think we have to, look, the whole thing of these folks is to try and make us feel hopeless, right? Who hasn't felt hopeless in this room? Who has not at some point felt hopeless? Any hands raised? Because I'm not raising. Okay, there's one in the back, somebody who hasn't felt hopeless. I have felt hopeless at times because it is a very, very difficult, trying time for our country. But I know that there are so many pieces of hope. And you look at these young people across the country who are really on fire about climate change and are lifting it up. You look at people like you who are bringing it up in these town halls. The hopefulness comes from the energy that we as a public put into an issue. Right? And so who feels hopeful that when we take back the House, the Senate, and the White House, that we are going to take on climate change? Yes, right? We will do that, and we have to continue to do it. And I think we have to see this again as the concentration of power. Not taking on climate change, destroying the progress that we've had, is all about a few giant corporations who make money by ravaging our planet and destroying opportunity for our people. And that's, I think, what we have to continue to just recognize is it's all part of this consolidation of power. And what can fight consolidation of power most effectively? The people. What can fight consolidation of power most effectively? The people, exactly. Thank you.
And if I could add, the Treaty of 1855, the Indians gave up millions of acres of land for the right to continue to fish.
That's right.
In accustomed spots. And you can go on the Nez Perce Tribe website, you can see they have solar panels all over their roofs.
Yeah.
And in the Constitution, treaty rights are one of the most important things that they call out. And I have a fear that the natives are going to get together and say, we want our land back. Thank you for coming to
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening, and my name is
Good evening.
Helen. I am from the South Hill. I started watching a lot of YouTube videos long before Trump was elected, and they had some wonderful people on, psychologists, doctors, who were able to diagnose him and show basically what was going to happen once he came into office, if he did. And unfortunately, all of their predictions so far have come true. So I'm wondering, why does Congress let it go as long as they have? I understand that Republicans make up the majority. I understand that there's a fear of him and what he can do or will do to anyone who opposes him. But there has to be some way of getting him contained, getting him out of office, whether it's into jail, into a mental hospital, something. Because my biggest fear, you know, you guys are all talking about the next election and how we're going to take over everything. My biggest fear is there isn't going to be any more elections. He said that, you know, vote for me and you'll never have to vote again. Direct quote. And so how do we stop that now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. We knew what Trump was going to do with Project 2025. I mean, I did town halls on Project 2025. We started a whole task force around Project 2025 back in the last year because we knew that it was very much of a prescribed roadmap for what was going to happen. And actually, everything that was in Project 2025 plus a little more has started happening or is happening or will happen. Because it's been announced already. So they've stayed very true to the plan. And I would just say, I'm on the Judiciary Committee. It's one of my committees. And so I was on the first impeachment trial that came through the Judiciary Committee. And I really believe, and that was before January 6th. And some of you know, or maybe you saw me on TV, I was one of the first faces of members of Congress that was shown after the January 6th attack, because I was actually in the Capitol and I couldn't get out. I was in the top part which is usually used for visitors, but it was COVID, and so they only had a few of us in the Capitol, and I was one of them. And I was sitting in that upper gallery, part of the gallery group, and I will never forget that pounding on the doors of insurrectionists who were trying to get in to kill us. And so to me, the idea that we didn't, because Republicans didn't vote to convict him, we impeached him in the House twice. We impeached him in the House twice under Democratic majorities, but with Republicans voting with us. And in the Senate, there were some Republicans that voted, but not enough. And we didn't convict him. And so, to me, that is what I'm saying when I say that if you have a constitution that relies on people on the other side doing the right thing, who would not be able to look at January 6th and legitimately most of those senators, by the way, were in the Senate when that happened, and they were all running away from the insurrectionists, so they knew exactly what was going on. Mitch McConnell made an incredible speech on the floor of the Senate that had you just listened to the speech, you would have thought he was going to vote to convict. But he didn't. And I think that it was a giant display of the flaw in when you say, can't Congress do something? It only works if people on both sides actually uphold the oath that we took to the Constitution. And you can have completely different policy positions. Liz Cheney and I share very little in common when it comes to policy positions, but we do share in common a desire to uphold the Constitution. And so there are people on the Republican side who have been trying to do this, and yet now we've ended up with essentially a cult party. And I have lots of Republican colleagues and friends who tell me, well, I can't vote against this. Yeah, I know it's not good for my constituents, but I can't vote against it because I'm going to lose office. What I would say is, if you're in office only to stay in office and not to do something for your constituents, then you shouldn't be in office. So when you say, what can we do? I did the only thing that I could think of, because I'm an organizer by training. That's what I did for a long time before coming to Congress. And it's organize the people, because we don't have the power in Congress to overrule them without some Republicans. And that means that we have to organize the people, and we have to be effective about our organizing. We have to be nonviolent about our organizing. We have to learn in the same way that the civil rights movement learned in the South, right? And fought nonviolently for voting rights. We have had these times in our country where we have been able to change the course of history, when Republican presidents and Republicans, members of Congress, have voted for things that they were diametrically opposed to before, or Democrats for that matter. And so we have to be able to organize the people. That's really all I can think of. And that's why I encourage you again to sign up for Resistance Lab, because it is a methodical way to look at what's happening and to organize the power of the people to be ready for whatever the big moments are. It is all about what the research has shown on Democratic backsliding is that it's mass times velocity equals momentum, right? So mass is how many people are actually getting engaged. Velocity is how many events are happening constantly. The things that you go to, don't think of them as one-offs. Think about them as building momentum. We had an incredible number of people, 5 to 7 million people, depending on which numbers you look at the No Kings rallies, right? I know some people say 12 million, but the organizers tell me 5 to 7 million. So I don't know, listen, I'm an organizer, we sometimes like to add to our numbers, so I'm happy with 12 million too. But here's the point that I'm trying to make, is that these things that you're going to, don't expect the change the day after you go to the thing. Know that momentum happens because we keep doing things, and we keep bringing more and more people in, and we keep organizing more and more people. And what has happened? Of the people who know about the big bad betrayal bill, 2 to 1 are opposed. So our messaging is working. We just need to expand our range. On immigration, Trump came in, unfortunately, with very good numbers for a lot of really horrible anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies. Those numbers have dropped by 10 to 15%, depending on which polls you look at. People do not they're okay with deporting violent criminals who are going to hurt us. But they are not okay with picking up people who are our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, who have done nothing wrong, who are trying to follow the legal process, who have been in this country for 20 years, who have mixed status families. U.S. citizen spouses, U.S. citizen kids. They want fairness and a legal system that actually works. They're not okay with kidnapping and disappearing and deporting people off the streets with masked men without any due process. So I say that to say that it's really important to think about all the ways that you can grow whatever your personal sphere of power and influence is. What are the churches or the synagogues or the mosques that you go to? What are the places where you engage with other people where you could get them involved? We have one house party already for Resistance Lab. Maybe we need a couple in some other parts. I don't want to take away from our wonderful host that's hosting, so sign up for hers first. But if it's not close enough for you, you can do another one. Or you can just come on virtually and bring other people with you. Those things matter. And I don't want you to feel like you come to a town hall or you go to a rally and then, oh my gosh, it doesn't make a difference. It is making a difference. And the whole point of everything they are doing is to try to overwhelm you and make you feel like you're powerless. And we are not powerless. We have voices, we have power, and we elect these people, and we're going to continue to exercise that.
If I can make just one more comment. I live in a senior housing community, and we have we have a lot of Ukrainians there. And I have talked to them and told them, you know, if anything happens, if we have masked men coming in, anything, contact me. And I have a group of people that I can call who will be there for them. Because masked men coming in isn't right, regardless of who they're going after.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, and remember, for anyone to come into any facility, they need to have a warrant. So you do not have to let somebody into a building if they don't have a warrant.
Good afternoon. Such a pleasure to be here with you. I always see you on live TV, always defending us, always fighting for our rights, and here I am, standing in the room next to you. So I'm so grateful. We get to see a lot of virtual, but not like our 4th Congressional District Representative Dan Newhouse, who just wants to kind of see us through TV, not in person. So I really commend you for coming out in person. That it validates a lot why you're here today. My name is Zeke, more official for Ezekiel from the Bible. And I want to share a little bit about myself. I'm a first generation a man, and my grandfather was a bracero from the 1940s. My parents came over as migrants in early 1970s, and shortly years after that, it was 9 of us. So I have 9 brothers and sisters. Some of us are nurses. I have a brother that became a police officer, sheriff, and now a correctional officer. Some are HVC technicians. Some are teachers. Some are in real estate. So we all have trades. I just posted today on my personal page. I have 25 years into graduating from Perry Tech as an electrician. So I own my business. Yeah. So I'm a politician. I'm an electrician too. So thank you very much. And you know, I want to share a lot of things, but I feel like right now our people are being attacked so severely, and I want to talk a little bit about. I want to share a little bit a sad, horrifying, but now realistic story. Early after the presidential inauguration in February, there was a kind of a town hall meeting or city council meeting in Sunnyside. So it involved a whole Jayapal Valley. It just wasn't Sunnyside. And there was, at the end of the meeting, there was a gentleman that approached the mic, and he started identifying himself as a bounty hunter. I call him a bonehead. He started talking about it as a bounty hunter. He wanted to negotiate with the city that if someone was going to pay him more money not to bounty hunt, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. So I was the person that I asked him to calm. You know, this is part of the reason why we're here, not to frighten people. You're frightening people. Please sit down. So now it's being months later, a few months later, it's being a realistic scene. So people are being kidnapped, as we say. Mothers are being taken. When they're pregnant, they were going through miscarriages because of their anxiety, stress, and all that that's going on. The question that I have is, the problem that we're seeing now is that there are wannabe or fake ICE agents posing as ICE agents, covered by masks and kidnapping women and raping them. That's the truth. The being raped, it's a known thing. What are the youth representatives? Is there any new conversations that are happening that are protecting or so that these people can identify themselves and remove the mask? I know there's a problem with immigration, and I support what's going on with the part of the problem that's going on. I think that all Latinos and Mexicanos understand that there is a problem with the borders, but you know what's going on in this kind of this type of situations is so terrible. I want to go back a little bit to the story with the city.
We should probably
how it happened.
continue, just so we, sorry, I just want to make sure we get other people. Shasti's much nicer. At my town halls, you get 1 minute, and then we move on just so we can get as many people in as possible. So just finish off your question, and we'll...
What happened at Sunnyside, the first raise that happened, the reason why there was an uproar with Sunnyside, city Sunnyside is because immigration showed up at the Fiesta Foods.
Yeah.
There was a person, I know the family, they were from Peru, they were asylum seekers, so they were going through a due process. So they were the first people that got picked up. They did nothing wrong, they were going through the process, but got picked up. So that was the reason why there was a city council meeting.
Yeah.
And it's now the bounty hunters are continuing as a realistic challenge to us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is such a critically important issue, and it's affecting our communities everywhere. And so, yes, we have bills. In fact, there was a bill introduced just recently around making sure that people are not, ICE agents don't wear masks. We shouldn't have to say that. You know, when ICE agents, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, is part of ICE that has traditionally gone after the worst criminals, right? Like think about, you know, really, they've gone after some of the big cartels and people like that. And even when they're arresting those people, they don't wear masks. But now this has become a practice, and some of you may have seen me questioning Marco Rubio on this, and the fact that they were kidnapping and disappearing and snatching people off the street with masks. Why? What do you fear that you can't be identified? Number one, and then how is it possible that somebody can just go up to a shop, a restaurant, a car, and snatch people and disappear them? And we've been trying to find out where they are. There's no transparency around where people are in the system. So this is also something we've been talking about. And the problem again is that in order to move forward on any of these things, we have to, with bills, we have to have Republicans because we have a minority. And so we have been, our strategy has been to use my position, I'm the top Democrat on the Immigration Subcommittee, to use my position there to shine a light on this. So we started doing shadow hearings because we're not allowed to call a hearing, an official hearing, unless you're the majority party. But why can't we as a minority party do shadow hearings that elevate what's happening? So our shadow hearing series is called Kidnapped and Disappeared. Our first one was on the deportation of people to third countries against courts, sending people to metal shipping containers in Djibouti on a plane that is leaving against the court order. The second one we just did yesterday, or a couple days ago, was about how people are showing up. They're in the legal process, just like you described. They're in the legal process. They're showing up to their appointments that they're asked to show up to the courts, to an asylum appointment, to a citizenship appointment. And then what's happening is, initially they were just getting arrested in the courtrooms or in the appointments. Now what the government is doing, because there are a lot of communities that are rising up against that, and blocking people from getting into courthouses, things like that. Now what they're doing is the government is dismissing the case. And in the past, if the government dismisses the case, it's a good thing. It means your case has been dismissed. Now what it means is if your case is dismissed, they are then putting the immigrant who came in to be in compliance with their legal process, they're putting the immigrant into what's called expedited removal. They're arresting them, detaining them, and deporting them with no due process under this process called expedited removal. So think about this. What a catch-22 this is. Because let's say you're in the legal process. You've been applying for asylum. It takes years. You finally get your appointment. You go to your appointment, and you're suddenly arrested and detained. So your choice now is to go to your appointment and get arrested and detained and deported, or to not show up to your appointment. Well, guess what happens if you don't show up to one of your immigration appointments? You're now called an absconder and you violated immigration law. So you're in a catch-22. Do you show up and get arrested, or do you not show up and then fear being deported because you've now violated immigration law? I mean, it's a ridiculous attack, dangerous attack on every part of the legal immigration system. And so we are trying to shine a light on that. That's why I did the immigration roundtables today, talked to some press folks who were there, just to really elevate the absurdity and the danger of this situation. And remember, if you erode due process for any one group of people, you can do it for everyone. The Constitution is very clear on this point. There are many places in the Constitution where it actually says citizen when it defines a right. The Due Process Clause is not one of those places. It says person. It says person. Every person gets due process because it is a foundational part of the justice system. And for people who don't know what, sometimes I'm talking to people and they don't necessarily know what it means to have due process, but they know it's kind of about fairness. I said, it's like if you're accused of something and you know you didn't do it. Somebody said, you stole my handbag. You say, no, I didn't. And I say, well, too bad. We're just going to put you in jail. And you're going to say, well, that's not fair. I get to fight my case, right? I get to tell you and show you the evidence for why I didn't steal your handbag. This is like saying, no, you don't. We're just going to tell you whether you're guilty or not, and there's no scales of justice. That's what due process is. And the Constitution is clear. And remember that every authoritarian, every dictator in the world starts with the most vulnerable population to see what they can get away with and what the public will tolerate. But then they move on to everyone else. And so that's why these town halls are so important. That's why it's so important that you're here. I do want to make sure we get through all of your questions. So let's get, yeah.
If we can't keep it under a minute, we appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Street. Some people know me as Mr. Nancy because my wife gets all her letters to the editor in the paper. Okay, so because I am very uncomfortable speaking in public, I joined the Toastmasters Club.
Yay!
And there are 12 to 15 of them in Spokane, by the way, and you can start one yourself, but anyway. The one I ended up in is very right-leaning. We have, I think, 4, maybe, depending on how many people show up each meeting, 4 to 6 people who are in the legal system. And Michael Baumgartner's local legislative assistant, I think he's a member now. I've seen him a couple months anyway. But anyway, so he comes. We meet at 6:30 a.m. in Frankie Doodles. Do you know what Frankie Doodles is?
Wow.
Okay, everybody.
This is dedication.
And guests are welcome. Don't have to pay. You can come. You maybe get a chance to talk, depending on how many people there are. But anyway, so my tendency is to evangelize rather than to fight. I don't think I'm a fighter. I want to. What's the thing about hearts and minds? I want to, change hearts and minds. And so anyway, you're all welcome to my club Wednesday mornings at 6:30 a.m. Okay, so originally, my first question, and I'll get to it and get out of here, is, okay, we've got all this, what looks to be like Trump's trying to create a whites-only country. I mean, taken to an extreme, which I think he's tends towards extremes. So you've got all these Hispanics working in all these industries, agriculture, healthcare, food processing, hotel and motel, all that stuff. So I'm thinking general strike. Yeah. You know. So I want to know what your thoughts are on general strike.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Toastmasters did an awesome job with you because you were great. You were fabulous. I would never have known that you were afraid of public speaking. That was terrific. You're also very dedicated, 6:30 in the morning. Wow. But I just want to commend you for going into places that are not just preaching to the choir. I think that's really important for all of us. And you mentioned you want to win hearts and minds and not evangelize. And I do think that we have this challenge, right? We have to be willing to listen to people and to call people in, not just call people out. And at many of my town halls, believe it or not, I mean, I represent Seattle, so, 80% of my district is Democrats, but I have about 20% Republican. And some of them have been showing up to my town halls. And sometimes they even get up and say that they voted for me, but they like Trump, or they wish I would work more with him. And I'm like, great, let's welcome you in, right? We don't have to agree on 100% of things. We just have to agree on core values and appeal to people's core values. And I'll tell you a little story. When I was running for state senate, maybe Shasti's heard this one, but I decided that because of our top two system, there were two Democrats in the race. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna go talk to the Republicans because they gotta vote for somebody, and why not me? And so I went, and it was a beautiful day, and I went to an area that's not like quite Seattle, and there was a guy who was on my list who was Republican, who was cleaning his Harley, and he was, burly, had lots of tattoos, and I had my own preconceived notions. I was like, oh my goodness, what's he gonna say? And I went up and we started talking. We had a fabulous conversation. Thought we should raise the minimum wage, was a union member, believed in, all the stuff we're going through. And I'm like, this guy is mine. He's gonna vote for me. This is awesome. And then he looks at me and he says, what's your position on guns? And I said, well, I believe in sensible gun legislation, just like driver's licenses. I think we should have legislation, And I said, but my husband used to own guns, so, I didn't say that he's now a Buddhist and a vegetarian, but he did own guns. He grew up in Pittsburgh, and he was the one who, when I got into the state legislature, he was like, you got to go to the legislative shootout, which, by the way, I did extremely well. I figured I should understand what I'm talking about when I talk about weapons, but we argued about it for like 5 minutes. And I was like, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere on this. And I decided I needed to make my ask. And I said, well, listen, I know we don't agree on this issue, but can I count on your vote? We agreed on so many things. Can I count on your vote? And he said, I don't know. He's like, you're just like all those other Democrats. You're just gonna take away my guns. And I said, I get it. He goes, I don't think I can vote for you. I said, I get it. His wife was standing there. I said, how long have you been married to your wife? He said, 28 years. I said, wow, that's amazing. And do you agree on 100% of issues? And he did exactly that. He laughed. And I said, well, you married her. I'm just asking for your vote. And he stuck out his hand and he said, you've got it. He said, but if you come after me and you take my guns, I'm gonna be on your ass. And I'm like, that's okay, I don't mind, right? So I tell this little story just to be clear that we have space in this party. We have space in this country for people who have different views on things. And we should know that it's okay to have questions about things or even to disagree on things, but we do need to start talking to each other. And it is white poor people who will be hurt by this bill as well. There are white, black, brown, people of every race, religion, ethnicity, district, state, who are going to be hurt by what is happening right now, of every political party. And we need to find a way to talk to each other and call people in and give them a place to stand with us for a vision of America where every one of us has real opportunity to thrive.
Hi, I'm Sammy Perry, and I'm with Spokane Indivisible. We just did a billboard fundraiser against Michael Baumgartner. I actually just came from that event and ran as fast as I could to get here to be with you. The billboard reads that he cut Medicaid, SNAP, and veterans benefits with his vote and gave billionaires the break. So it's made a pretty big hit in Spokane. But the greatest thing of all is that when we first put out the billboard campaign, we absolutely had no idea what to expect. We raised enough money in 4 hours.
Wow.
So we're gonna continue with the billboard thing going on because it's working. But the last town hall I attended was Michael Baumgartner's, and he didn't like the people there, and he called us unhinged lunatics. So I'm wearing my unhinged lunatic shirt proudly tonight. My question is, I am a retired educator, and I know, working in the schools, and I always did elementary school, there are babies that come to school that have not been fed, and the only way that they get fed is through the school and through Medicaid, and which is called Apple Health here in Washington State. 54% of our area, the children get fed through Medicaid. The school that I worked for, only 64% was what the kids got their food. They would get breakfast, they would get lunch. Sometimes they give them a little snack before they went home. And they would get bites to go on the weekend. And we know that if they didn't get that food in the public schools, they didn't get food at all.
That's right.
So my question is, what are we gonna do when we can't feed the babies?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you, first of all, for being an educator and for taking care of our kids. We so appreciate it. And also thank you to Indivisible. I love Indivisible. We do so much work together. I think I'm speaking at the statewide Indivisible conference, if anyone is going to that. So I think that this issue of food is so, it just breaks my heart. I mean, nutrition assistance in the richest country in the world, we provide $2 a meal. That's it. $6 a day is what people on nutrition assistance get in the richest country in the world. And what's in the big bad betrayal bill is a $300 billion cut to SNAP, to Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is what your kiddos rely on. And you're right that in Washington State, one of the things we have to really make sure people understand, we've done such a good job of branding Apple Healthcare that people have said to me, oh, I'm not on Medicaid, I'm on Apple Health. Well, 60% of Apple Health is Medicaid. It's a state-federal partnership, and that's the money that will be affected. But with nutrition assistance, the thing to me that confounds me, we're going to put $1 trillion into the Pentagon this year. $1 trillion into the only federal agency that has never passed a federal audit. They have actually failed 7 audits. And yet we don't have $6 a day for a kid, a poor person to eat, somebody who's hungry to eat. We do not suffer from scarcity in the United States of America. We suffer from greed. We suffer from greed. And so what we're going to have to do is fight hard against the big bad betrayal bill. It is not over. You have a couple of days. You can still call senators. You can find the list of people with Republican senators. If you know people in Alaska, this is a really good time to call Lisa Murkowski. And you can call, let's have a huge effort to call our 2 Republicans in this state. And to showcase the stories that are right here in the district. I looked up the stats for this district. 230,000 people in this district rely on Medicaid. 95,000 kiddos. 18,000 seniors, right? We can get those stats for SNAP as well. But I think this is just so important that we don't give up, because we have this little window, and it may be that this week is not the week that we vote, it may be next week. So tonight, tomorrow, the next day, let's be on these calls, let's be on the letters, call into talk shows, do whatever you can in this moment. And if this ends up passing, then we're gonna have to pick those kiddos up, and we're gonna have to make sure that they get fed somehow, and make sure that we rebuild a much better program where we actually make sure that there's no hunger in the United States of America. We can do that. We can do big things, and we deserve to.
Thank you so much. And now we have our final question of the night. Thank you for waiting.
Hi, my name is Corinna. I also am a teacher. And I'd love
Thank
to
you.
ask questions about education, because I feel like that undermining of education is huge right now, both elementary, secondary, post-secondary, all of that's going on. But instead, I'm going to ask you about something else. I feel like a lot of these immigrants that are already gone, or people who've already been deported, are there any pathways to help them?
It's such a tough question. It depends. I mean, first of all, thank you. To all the educators, thank you. Really appreciate you. It's really tough. I mean, there are legal cases that are going on. You know, we were able to get Mahmoud Khalil back into the country. We were able to get Mahmoud Khalil released, and we were able to get Kilmar Abrego Garcia back into the country. But now they're actually trying to deport Kilmar. So on trumped up charges, maybe pun intended. And the irony of it is they're releasing a 3-time convicted felon who's supposedly testifying with evidence against Kilmar, and they're conjuring up the evidence to try and deport him now under this new charge, because the first charge didn't hold up. So I think it's very difficult. The people, there are a lot of people that are in that metal shipping container in Djibouti who are being represented, but it's extremely difficult once somebody is deported. And so the Supreme Court ruling on allowing third country deportations was devastating. Absolutely devastating, because it's basically saying once somebody is deported, it's extremely hard to get them back. We saw it with Bukele and El Salvador, and Trump saying he doesn't have control over what happens there, but then saying, of course, I could get him back whenever I want to. I mean, completely diametrically opposed statements. But once somebody is gone, it's really, really tough, which is why we have to fight so hard to make sure that people don't get deported, and the ACLU and the legal programs of, the lawyers across the country who are defending these folks. And most immigrants go through the immigration system pro se. They go through completely unrepresented. That's about 90% of people. And the immigration legal system is second only in complexity to the tax system. So it's incredibly complicated and complex area of law that has not been updated in over 30 years. So if somebody says that they want a functioning legal system and they want people to get in line, They need to know that we have not created any lines. We have no legal pathways for people to actually come into this country. And now they're, even the ones we have, whether it's student visas or whatever, parole, temporary protected status, asylum status, all those legal pathways are being ripped away. And at the immigration roundtable that I did earlier, there's so many heartbreaking cases of, a Haitian man who was on temporary protected status. Trump just revoked it, just completely revoked it, a legal status that had been given to people from a country that is at war. You can't go, and now those people, he was in tears, this man who was trained, by the way, as a doctor, in his home country, in tears, because he's like, where do I go? Where am I supposed to go? Where do I self-deport myself to? And so that, to the people who are picked up who are working at restaurants here in Spokane, really some amazing and horrific stories. But I think that it's why I've been so inspired, just to bring this point back, by the things I've seen, whether it's Sackett Harbor in upstate New York, where this is a town of 12,000 people, where Tom Homan, the head of ICE, well, I don't think that's his title. Anyway, I'm blocking it out. What can I say? It lives, okay? He's the deportation czar, the border czar. I think that's his official title, border czar. 3 kids were picked up in that school, and the community rallied around those kids and went to the principal, and the principal rallied the school folks, the educators, and 10,000 people in a town of 12,000 marched to Tom Homan's house, and the kids were returned, right? And I've watched in states in the South where ICE comes to a home, and I've watched community members encircle the home and refuse to move and refuse to allow them in. And ICE goes away. So it really matters. It really matters what you do to prevent people from being deported, and it really matters what you do to lift up the best of who we are in this country. They have hate, we have love. They have despair, we have hope. They want to concentrate power. We want the people to have power. And this is a powerful vision, and each one of you is so powerful. And using the power that we have in the most effective way is really what we need to do. And so I'm so grateful to all of you for coming. I'm so grateful to Shasti for leading us at the state party, making sure that Washington State Democrats are standing strong and tall in every district, in every part of the state. And to the whole team at the Washington State Democrats, thank you all so much for having me tonight.
Thank you so much, Representative. Every single time I get to hear her speak, I always feel better about the world that we are building and a part of. All right, before everybody leaves, I'm glad you all are standing already. I'm going to have my team come up. We're going to do a quick group shot with the folks in the background. So Marie, we're going to turn around. Marie, if you can run up and get this photo. All right, get together a little bit. We're going to take a quick photo. Thank you, everyone. everyone. Thank you. Have a great evening. Be safe out there. And thank you so much for coming. And follow us on all of our channels at Washington State Democrats. Thank you.